Everyone, this is update for July 29, 2022, day 156 of the war and of the date update. So first, let's discuss as always general uh, sort of problems and questions, and then we're going to switch to the frontline situation. So first, let's look at the Ukrainian economy. So Ukrainian economy is in complete free fall. Now the central bank is, or I think central bank is reporting that unemployment is has reached 35%, which is no surprise, as we discussed that as the industry is either, all businesses at large are either destroyed or destroyed by Ukrainian government action. So two major sort of sources of disaster in Ukraine. So, and as a result, Ukrainian hryvnia, which is Ukrainian currency, is also collapsing. We mentioned this that it was started from 29, then it reached like 36. Now it reached 40. Now it's pushing 43 Ukrainian hryvnias for $1. So and then Ukrainian central bank, what they decided to do, because so you understand how it works in Ukraine. Nobody trusts local currency because it's been always sort of tempered with, right, by the central bank. There was sort of never a history of successful sort of success of the local currency over long run. So as a result of that, most of the population is storing their wealth in foreign currency, mostly in US dollars, and that's why everything's in US dollars and partially in euros. So because of that, you need sort of to service that. So there is like sort of college industry that does currency exchange, and you can see those currency exchanges booth pretty much everywhere in major any shopping mall. You have a couple of those pretty much everywhere. So and now because they all have like large display with the numbers, right, at what they exchanging, and it's competitive market. So they trying to attract customers by showing the best exchange rate. And so central bank in Ukraine actually ordered all of this exchange points to shut down their displays and not to display the the exchange rate. And that's how they sort of call it fighting in quotes the devaluation of Ukrainian hryvnia, which obviously, as everybody knows, it's a monetary phenomenon, and the arsonist is actually central bank. That's who does it. So they also projecting that inflation is going to reach 30%. Again, it's all government based numbers that are all incentives not to sort of display the correct information. So the probably inflation is somewhat higher. We don't have the exact number. It's not quite as in Turkey, where the formal government measured inflation is like 78%, but the real one, based on what people say, is somewhere around more than 100%. So, but it definitely, Ukraine is heading that way, and we think the collapse will only accelerate in the coming months, and it clearly poses a threat to country's ability to continue its defense. So we'll see how that plays out, but there's definitely I would say hurricane on the horizon, or we would say it's already started. It's been going on for now. So now let's actually switch to the frontline situation. We're gonna do again discuss major general topics, and then we're gonna walk through the front line as we always do. So first, a little bit about the equipment that Ukraine gets. So Macedonia, which is a small country straight north of Greece, they I believe they donated 30 T-72 tanks to Ukraine, which is very generous move, given that the country doesn't have much wealth, doesn't have much anything, and that's pretty much everything they had. So that's pretty impressive move on its own. And then also Ukraine is getting, I think, 12 the bridge laying. Well, we wouldn't call it tanks, but armored vehicles that are based on a Leopard 1 tank. So that's one thing. And then there are actually now surfacing reports that there are a lot of technical issues with Panzerhaubitze 2000, the self-propelled um, howitzer that Ukraine got, that really on paper is excellent, and it does look like it does sort of great things. But however, apparently the loading mechanism is getting worn out pretty quickly, and this basically tear and wear is is uh, is excessive basically, and some of them, at least up to 3 to 4, that needs to be immediately repaired. They're no longer usable. So this really actually poses big question about the quality of production and just generally quality of the equipment that's being produced in Germany. That's because they, let's say the barrel should withstand at least, like, 10,000 sort of shoots or more, and this loading mechanism, it should also do kind of the same. They basically, all military equipment supposed to be built for endurance, so it lasts really long time. So even from engineering, that's why it's somewhat more expensive, because from engineering point of view, you're trying to, to kind of like overcompensate and build sort of buffer against tear and wear as much as possible. Apparently, that's not what being done with those howitzers, which is big disappointment. But that's a situation. That's essentially that's what's going on there. Then now let's actually, whenever this in terms of HIMARS attacks, uh, so we have a little bit information about the railroad bridge that's in Kherson. It looks like it was somewhat damaged. There is a picture that's showing some damage. It's still unclear if it's sort of possible or not possible, because it could be also photoshopped. But it does look like there was some damage. It's still unclear to what extent the damage was done. In addition, then HIMARS systems attacked Russian depots in Zaporizhia region, successful artillery ammunition storage depots. But as you can see from the major Russian offensive straight west of Donetsk, it doesn't deter, doesn't stop that. So Russian command is sort of relatively successfully is able to deal with the destruction of the ammunition. Yeah, it's definitely creating hurdles, difficulty for them. There's no question about it, but it's not unsurmountable, and it doesn't even prevent from launching major offensives. So, as discussed before, as we said before, the solution is really destruction of the Russian artillery, most capable one, long range artillery, and then from there you can destroy the rest. And as we discussed before, again, the loss of this Panzerhaubitze 2000 is even more important, because that's the sort of like artillery fist that Ukraine has. That's very strong. That's much stronger than what Russia has at this point. And that what could have been used to actually throw off even this offensive, because the machine is still working the same way. Russia is creating this artillery firewall that slowly but surely destroys their trenches, all of their sort of bunkers and so on. And then Russian infantry goes and attacks and tries to mop up their remaining resistance. But this Russian artillery is not mobile in general. Majority of it is actually not even self-propelled. It's just stationary cannons, so they don't really move much, and they heavy. So on top of it, so they not mobile in the first place. So they are easy target if you would if you're using this self-propelled howitzers that Ukraine got, this Crabs, this PH-2000, Caesars, they can easily simply disrupt this firewall at the very beginning. And then the other importance on the Russian side is that they don't rely much on electronics, and they heavily rely. It's all kind of like people, right? So it's driven by people basically. So you really need to skill artillery crews, and if you destroy artillery crews, that's it. Your ability to shoot is not there anymore. So and training those is not quick. It's the first thing. The second thing, it requires pretty high level of intelligence. So in the first place, you don't have in the entire sort of population group, you don't have many like large supply of those. So it really is hitting the sort of really the bottleneck essentially. However, this is not being done. Actually, there was actually a report that Russia is bringing about 70 self-propelled cannons, 203 millimeters from Omsk area in Russia. So those are probably going to be used here west of Donetsk, just to sort of increase the intensity of this firewall. But again, they are super, so they're super slow, they're super not mobile. Even though these are like they using basically tracked vehicle, but the how to say, the intensity or speed of the fire is totally not there. Then Russian troops are using all of these old shells that have huge dispersion. So again, there's a lot of opportunity to pick them up and destroy, but unfortunately it's not being used by Ukrainian side so far. In addition, we would like to mention, before we go to the walk through the front line, we would like to mention about the war crimes which happened and happened a lot, and by the Russian side, and we normally don't discuss this stuff, but they were simply extremely disgusting, extremely, let's say, even for the war, unacceptable. So there were 3 different instances. So the first instance, Russian soldier basically cut off genitals of their Ukrainian prisoner of war, and then shot him, and then dragged his body, and then threw it in a ditch. And he put all of that, on the social media, let's put this way. The other one was Russian soldiers cut off head of Ukrainian soldier, cut off his hands, and then they put that on the pike. So and then the final event is this attack on Avdiyivka prison, where essentially what Russian command did, they killed there at least 53 defenders of Azovstal, and at least 75 are wounded. So what happened there is, based on discussion with sort of like criminal experts, is that it's not a rocket hit, and the reason for that, there are a lot of the bodies are charred, so basically they burned. That's not what usually what would happen if it's just simple normal high explosive. That's different kind of sort of body damage that happens. So what this is most likely, and a lot of them were really charred. So this is most likely it's a thermobaric weapon that was sort of thrown in the building. But even from that, even there, they also, based on the videos, what they say that most of these people were already dead. So they were just put there in their beds, and then thermobaric weapon was exploded there and sort of kind of burned them essentially. And what's happening really is that those probably were the sort of victims of tortures and executions, because for Russia, this people, they cannot let these people out back to Ukraine or sort of to freedom, because they fully realize they very sort of indoctrinated. They will fight again. They will go back to the front line, and they were openly discussing this. So this is not just, I'm thinking. They were many sort of Russian sources were saying we should not let them out ever again, no matter how this happens. And so this is what happened. So they identified the most dangerous ones apparently, and they eliminated them. And then just to cover up, they created this alleged attack by Ukrainian HIMARS system that sort of killed them. So that's where. And then the other thing is that uh, Russian officials reporting that none of the guards in that area in the prison was killed, so, and or wounded. So that's totally impossible, if you can imagine that. So it's all falling apart on the seams. Even right now, Ukrainian command is asking Red Cross to actually go there immediately, investigate that. So if Ukrainian command, Ukrainian side would be sort of perpetrator of this, we wouldn't call on Red Cross to go there and investigate. We don't think that the Red Cross will be allowed to come there, and that will be your answer. Who is trying to sort of who did that? So and unfortunately, this probably not the last mass execution of the defenders of Azovstal, because we're pretty sure there's more than, let's say, 50 or 70 who are sort of hardcore and so on. Basically, out of that group, there's about 800 members of Azov regiment, so they probably will try to eliminate a good chunk of that in the process under different sort of, another hits or something like that. So that would not be surprising. So we never discussed this, but this is really, sort of like a bottom that's, we cannot express disgust of these actions. Out of what kind of disgust we feel, it's absolutely not normal, and those people will be punished for what they did. Nevertheless, now let's switch to the walk through the front line. As we always do, we're going to start from the very north, and then we're going to go down in a clockwise fashion. So their situation along their state border is more or less the same. Basically, intensity more or less the same of exchange of artillery fire, mortar fire, all kind of fire. But as we discussed, they probably it will remain like that for the foreseeable future. Now let's move to Kharkiv, east of Kharkiv, and here things totally positioned. Everything is frozen. Nothing truly happening here. Now let's move to Izyum. Situation here is also totally frozen, really nothing happening. And as we discussed, we believe that most of these units are pulled out of here and they being transferred to either north Donbass section of the front line or the area straight west of Donetsk. So if you remember, like about 2 or 3 months ago, intensity of the fighting here, and now it's all frozen. Now let's move to actually north Donbass section of the front line, and let's see what's happening here. So what we're noticing is the Russian troops kind of stopped attacking in this northern section, which we said that it's not going to be very likely area of the future attack, and so it does look that it's playing out that way, that the northern part of it is not going to be the major focus of the Russian side. And again, for that reason, we're saying that, for example, this 90th Tank Division and 76th Airborne Division, many of these units are probably going to be out of here. However, the southern portion of this north Donbass section of the front line is actually active. So the area that basically next objective for the Russian troops here is to capture this town Bakhmut. So they're attacking towards Soledar without success so far today. Then they basically straight against the Soledar, Pokrovsky area. And then they attacking towards Vershina, and then in kind of like this area, Semigiria, where it used to be this Vugledar power plant. So basically in the southern section where Wagner mercenaries operating. So this is probably we would say that this is I would say spearhead of this attacking forces at this point here. So it's probable that mostly who is attacking here are Wagner mercenaries and some other Russian units, but majority bulk of the other regular Russian units has been moved to the area west of Donetsk. And let's actually now move south and let's actually look what's going on west of Donetsk. So now Russian troops are attacking essentially along the entire section of the front line. So let's call it this sort of northern section, which is objective is town Avdiyivka. So, and then this international airport here, the Donetsk International Airport. So they sort of continuing their attacks, very heavy artillery fire here in this area, and the same is in the southern section. Again, sort of typical standard areas of attacks is towards Maryinka, and then they trying to cut off this salient around Novomykhailivka. Another area of the attack, and we don't know if this is going to be serious, but it's related to all this front line, and that's why we want to discuss it right now before jumping to Zaporizhia, is Velyka Novosilka. We don't have, let's actually go and look at this is the Zaporizhia front line, and as we discussed before, specifically we're going to focus on this eastern section of it. So as we discussed before, this is the defensive positions here are sort of not as great in general because they were not built over time. This is just quickly built, some trenches, not even nothing really strong here. So it makes a lot of sense, and as we discussed before, for Russian troops is actually not to attack sort of straight towards west around near here, but actually attack from the south, do another attempt to kind of create southern pincer. So that's what we hearing reports that they are attacking towards this Velyka Novosilka. They're trying their luck again here in this area. So as we let's go back. So we're saying this is right now not even sort of major attack. This is kind of like a large probe of Ukrainian defenses with the idea to determine the weaker spots and where to focus basically, right? And it goes from this Velyka Novosilka all the way up to this Novobakhmutivka. So this whole area being intensely tested in actual real attacks. So this is not even probing attempts to see where there could be some cracks and breaches created, and then put all of the focus, all of the power in that small area. So we'll sort of continue coverage of this, we always do, but this is for everyone, this is going to be now major area where things are going to be probably going to be happening in foreseeable future right now, and also a little bit north in the sort of southern section of the North Donbass front line. The rest of the Zaporizhia front line is frozen and let's say not quiet, but it's just defensive fighting. Now let's move to Kherson bridgehead. So things here are more or less the same. Ukrainian troops are still being able to hold this small bridgehead. There is just essentially exchange of artillery fire, but no major action by either side. And it's very clear from a Russian perspective, they are definitely not going to be able to do major action at this point here, because as we discussed, this bridge is essentially gone, this Antonievsky bridge. Then the railroad bridge seems to be damaged, but it does look, it's a relatively light damage, but at the same time it wasn't really focus of attack, so we're pretty sure that's going to be another focus of attack. This bridge over in Hulets River near Darivka is also damaged severely, and then this road over them is damaged as well. So definitely there are developing supply issues for the Russian troops on the bridgehead. Nevertheless, a Russian command decides to continue to hold to it. Apparently, they might be feeling that Ukrainian side, the Ukrainian troops are not strong. Opposing Ukrainian troops here are not strong enough that they're going to be able to sort of withstand the the attacks going forward. So this remains to be seen. We'll see how things develop here, but the what is very clear is that Ukrainian command is doing absolutely correct things right now in terms of cutting off supply first, weakening the Russian forces, preparing for the major attack, and including splitting the forces, this whole bridgehead, into two pieces, so that it's easier to destroy the whole group by starting sort of by doing it piecemeal, essentially. So that's kind of like the plan, the whole kind of logic behind what's going on here right now. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow, bye bye.